Hi, my name is Sarah Brasiel, and I'm a program officer at the National Center for Special Education Research. And I work at the Institute of Education Sciences, which is within the U.S. Department of Education. Okay, so this is where I work, the Institute of Education Sciences, and we are the Research, Statistics, and Evaluation arm of the U.S. Department of Education. Our mission is to describe the condition and progress of education in the United States, identify education practices that improve academic achievement and access to education opportunities, evaluate the effectiveness of federal and other education programs. And this is our organizational structure. We have 4 different centers, and I'm right here, the National Center for Special Education Research. The purpose and objectives of our research grant program is to develop and identify education interventions, practices, programs, policies, and approaches to enhance academic achievement that can be widely deployed. But through that process, we also hope to identify what does not work and encourage innovation and further research. And this will also help us understand the processes that underlie the effectiveness of education interventions and the variation in their effectiveness. For this Liberate workshop, I'm really excited to participate. They asked me to think of a couple of different questions I'm going to respond to. The first one is, what class of problems or solutions is usually supported by my agency? And so I'm going to show you a document we have available on our website. It's called a Compendium of Education Technology Research, funded by NCER and NICSER, 2002 to 2014. This document is a great example of the different types of research that we have funded, including for students with disabilities, technology to support student learning, technology to support teachers and instructional practice, and technology to support research and school improvement. So there's lots of different projects we have funded that you can find there to learn more about our program and what we have funded. But I wanted to highlight a little bit of some examples related to assistive technology, since that's going to be a topic of discussion for this Liberate workshop. We have funded work in the area of science and math to develop tactile graphics so that students with visual impairments can access the curriculum that has different kind of like math bar graphs and different kind of images that they normally would have difficulty accessing. We've also developed text-to-speech and word prediction software for students with dyslexia, apps for students with autism or intellectual disabilities to assist them with organizing, scheduling, social interactions, and support their independence and employment. Games for children with ADHD to support their attention, apps and games for children with autism to improve their social skills, facial and emotion recognition, and interpretation of non-literal language. Video repositories of life skills videos and lessons for children and young adults with autism and intellectual disabilities, and also apps to support American Sign Language generation and translation for students, their parents, and the teachers. So just an example of some of the things that we have funded. Another question I was asked to respond to is, what are existing or emerging themes from the current research portfolio that we have? So I think one of the things is just, we've funded a limited amount. There's just still so many needs. So for example, the tactile graphics, that project developed a few tactile graphics, but there's so many more needs for development of tactile graphics. Maybe some kind of automated generation technological approach to do that more easily for teachers and students in classrooms would be great. Also, there's many different kinds of life skills that students need support with, and technology could support them with opportunities to practice, and also job-related skills. There's also more work needed to understand Braille reading, especially now with all the technological advancements, and thinking about how adult Braille users are interacting with technology, and then sort of backwards designing better programs for teachers of visually impaired students and also the students K-12. Those are just a few examples from our portfolio of some other research that is needed. What ideas or compelling efforts fall through the cracks that we might want to explore? So the first area that came to mind is really leveraging what industry is learning. I don't really find that we do that very often. So for example, Google is doing a lot in the area of accessible technology with users of Android apps and Google apps, finding ways to reach people where they live and work. And it seems like education research could really leverage some of that to apply it to what we're doing as well. The second area that falls through the cracks is really solutions for very young children. So there's many different types of accessible technology that's available to students that tend to be older students, students in college, and also in the workforce. But what about the very young children? So for example, there's like an electronic or digital cane that's used by adults with visual impairment. It's a new technology solution for accessibility. But what about very young children and their need to explore, playground in their school or different how to get to the restroom in their school? A cane may not be as feasible, or is there different types of wearable technology, GIS software solutions that could be applied to support very young children? So keeping them in mind as well. Those are just a couple examples. What exciting capabilities or advances do I see enabled by the research that I know of? I think there's many interventions and apps that have already been developed and available that could be improved by advances in artificial intelligence and data science, like data mining, machine learning. And so that's something that we're excited about at IES because of this new challenge of helping to accelerate recovery from COVID-19 interruption. So as you know, schools shut down for the past year, and this has had a real big impact on students with disabilities. They've lost the opportunity to learn without support services they used to be provided in school. Lots of extra additional special education services like occupational speech therapy probably was halted for a time. And so I really think there's been an increased gap in achievement when their achievement is compared to their non-disabled peers. So we really need solutions that are going to provide ongoing assessment and progress monitoring, targeted interventions specific to the student's needs and characteristics like their disability type and accessibility needs, and then also being able to communicate data to diverse stakeholders like their parents, the students themselves, teachers, school administrators, and district administrators. Also, a real need for transition services and supporting students with disabilities to have improved post-secondary outcomes like life skills, employment, further education, social engagement. Many of these opportunities and programs were ended because of COVID and not allowing students onto work sites or to learn some of those soft skills or job skills. And so we're really seeking rapid research and development to leverage technology innovations like artificial intelligence, data science to address some of these immediate needs. As I mentioned, since I'm a program officer at the Institute of Education Sciences, I would also like to make you aware of our grant programs besides NSF as another opportunity to consider. So if you're interested in working in education settings, improving education outcomes, and sharing your research findings with education practitioners, I think you are a good candidate for our program. And so our special education research grant programs try to expand the knowledge base on infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities by supporting research to advance our understanding and practices of teaching, learning, and organizing education systems. To apply for our program, you do need to be focused on children with or at risk for a disability, and we ask you to kind of abide by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, a list of disabilities, in terms of which group or groups your innovation or intervention is targeted to. We also ask that your work is primarily for education settings that are under the control of the U.S. education systems. And so we don't necessarily support informal learning or outside of education unless it's something in the control of the U.S. education system, like a local education agency. Also, our program, we fund work for a variety of outcomes. So developmental outcomes, school readiness outcomes, STEM, literacy, social, emotional, behavioral, functional, secondary transition, and post-secondary. So there's a broad range of outcomes you could be looking at for your idea. We fund some common project types, which are measurement, like development of assessments, exploration, trying to see which factors are related to other factors that could then inform a future development project. Also development and innovation, and initial efficacy and follow-up. Now, periodically, we have special calls for other types of research, such as replication studies, networks, research and development centers, even different kinds of statistical approaches. And our requests for applications are typically released in late spring, with applications due in August. A note about the sample, because this is something that people are a bit concerned about when they're applying for a research grant program, is how small is too small. And so we are very interested in research on low incidence disabilities. We do support research with designs such as single case designs, smart designs. And so your sample size is really going to depend on your target population and the research questions that you have. So you will have to demonstrate that your sample provides enough power to address your research questions for certain project types. And some project types will require a power our analysis. But this is something, if you're interested in applying to IES, you definitely would want to talk to me, and I'd be glad to work with you through your project idea and seeing if it would be a good fit. We do have a rigorous peer review process that starts with first reviewing the applications to make sure they're compliant and responsive to the request for applications. And then they're sent to 2 to 3 reviewers. They're called the primary reviewers to review the application. And then they're rank ordered according to their average overall score. And then the most competitive ones are sent to a full panel for discussion. And then those are given a score, and we seek to fund all applications that are scored outstanding or excellent, as long as we have funding available. And this is one of the most important slides. Grant writing is a process. So, you work really hard on writing it, and then it goes to the peer review panel and you get feedback, and often it's not going to be funded the first time around. Only 13% of applications in general are awarded, and often a lot of them are resubmissions. And so it's important to work with us as program officers. We can review parts of your application, even the full application if you get it to us ahead of time, to really continue to strengthen your application, respond to reviewer feedback to move it closer to getting an award. I've had grantees that's taken them 5 years of resubmissions to get awarded, and I've also had some that have gotten awarded their first time. So it's definitely people who are interested in being persistent. I highly recommend you consider one of our grant programs. So our grant programs will be released usually late spring, May and June. And that's when I recommend that you see if there's an opportunity that's a good fit for your idea, and then contact me. And I would love to talk through your idea and see if there's part of it or all of it that could be funded under one of our grant programs. I encourage you to reach out to me during this workshop as ideas come to you, and then I can send you some similar projects or some related projects, because sometimes it's good to request from one of the prior funded principal investigators a copy of their application so you can use it kind of as an example of their work. And so I highly recommend that you consider our program, but also I'm really excited to participate in this workshop and learn more from you that can help improve our program. And so I'm thankful again for your time and willingness to allow me to participate. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to me by email. Thank you very much.